Okay, folks, so we are now going to be studying Descartes' second meditation. Those of you in National 5, this is now the end of the course for you. So once you've done this video lesson, you have got nothing else to do in terms of new content. You will have finished the National 5 philosophy course. Those of you in higher still have another lesson next week to get through. So your title is Meditation 2, and your learning intention is to understand Descartes' cogito. Your success criteria, which you don't need to write down, is to analyze and evaluate the cogito. So once you've done that, let's have a quick recap of meditation 1. So you don't need to write this down. This is more me explaining how we've got to where we are right now in the meditations. So Descartes' aim, or one of his aims, is to prove that his senses are unreliable. He wants to find a solid foundation for knowledge which he cannot have any doubt about. So what he's trying to do is try and find out one thing which he can be sure of, upon which he can start to build new knowledge. Descartes goes through the process known as his method of doubt of challenging his beliefs, which he gets even from the senses in 4 waves. And he does these in order. So to start with, he looks at the unreliability of the senses. Our senses can deceive us. So he gives the example, remember, of objects that are far away appearing to be small when in fact they are really big. But there are still some things which his senses tell him which he can't doubt. So his first stage of his method of doubt, or the first wave, he admits that the senses do deceive us, but in order to be able to doubt things, he still finds it difficult to doubt some things which his senses tell him. His next wave is the dream argument. And in the dream argument, Descartes basically thinks that he can't be sure if he's dreaming or awake. But even if we can't tell the difference between being awake or in a dream right now, he still argues that our dreams have to be based on something real, such as shape and size, which exist out with the dream. So our dreams, even if we can, our dreams are based on something real. So even if we can't tell the difference between dreaming and being awake, or if we can't be sure if we're dreaming or if we're awake, we can still find or still reason that our dreams, if we are dreaming or not, must still be based on something real. So again, Descartes hasn't really succeeded in being able to doubt his senses. However, he moves on to the deceiving God argument. And basically what he's saying here is that there could be a God deceiving his senses. Because God is all-powerful, for Descartes, who believed in God, this is enough for him to accept that all senses could be deceiving him, because an all-powerful God could be willing that his senses deceive him. He then progresses on to the evil demon. So at this point, Descartes is now able to doubt everything that his senses tell him. So the unreliability of the senses, going back to that, tells him or leads him to the conclusion that there are still some things which his senses tell him, which, although they're unreliable, that he can't doubt. The dream argument, although he can't tell the difference between dreaming and being awake, he still says that his dreams must be based on something real. But now that we've got the deceiving God, because God is all-powerful, it makes sense for Descartes to say, well, if God is all-powerful, then it would make sense that he could possibly be deceiving him through his senses. So basically saying that he could be making his senses false and making his senses deceiving. Lastly then, Descartes then focuses on this idea of evil demon. And he says, and this is basically what he does in the next meditation, which we're going to look at, he says that he's now going to imagine that an evil demon, not an all-good God, is deceiving him about everything he believes through the senses. He does this so he can try and find something of which he can be absolutely certain. And in the second meditation, Descartes finds what he thinks is this certain bit of knowledge. So your first task is to watch this video about the cogito argument. And once you've done that, you're going to get, excuse me, a lecture which follows this. What I will do, as with last week, is put the transcript, so everything I say, up onto Microsoft Teams again. So you've got your notes there from me. So you can either read along to the next part of the video, or you can listen to what I say, take notes, and then refer to the transcript. It's up to you how you do it. So let's start. Descartes began his second meditation with a statement of what has been called diabolic doubt. He had managed to call authority, senses, reason, and God all into question. There appeared to be no foundation that could give him certainty or give him the certainty that he desired. In the second meditation, Descartes' aim is to overcome the evil demon and find a solid foundation for knowledge. He does this through what is called the cogito. He must prove that he can exist. Descartes moves on from a point of doubting the existence of anything to a point of determination to discover just one certain piece of knowledge. So in the first meditation, Descartes has doubted the existence of anything because there could be a God deceiving him. Yeah. Now what he's trying to do is show that there is at least one piece of certain knowledge upon which he can then build new knowledge. This is the foundational beliefs which he's seeking, yeah? So he's looking for something which he can be certain of. So let's think about the evil demon. Descartes is left with the problem from meditation 1 that he could be living in a reality that is completely false, and everything he experiences and reasons isn't true. It's all a manipulation of the evil demon. Descartes tries to find a foundation for knowledge which he can be certain of and is beyond doubt, even in a false reality. So even if reality is false, Descartes is trying to find one thing that he can be absolutely certain of. And this is where we get introduced to the cogito. So Descartes arrives at the cogito through the method of doubt. He identified something that at last he calls certain knowledge, something which is absolutely true. This is something which is true and could not conceivably not be true and is always true. Descartes states as follows: "But there is a deceiver, I know not who he is, powerful and sly in the highest degree, who is always purposely deceiving me. Then there is no doubt that I exist. If he deceives me, and deceive me as he will, he can never bring it about that I am nothing, so long as I shall think that I am something. Thus it must be granted that, after weighing everything carefully and sufficiently, one must come to the considered judgment that the statement I am, I exist, is necessarily true every time it is uttered by me or conceived in my mind." Descartes' foundation of knowledge is the simple observation that he was conscious of the fact that he existed. The cogito, which is Descartes' foundation of knowledge, is simply cogito ergo sum, which is I think, therefore I am. However, initially, he comes up with I am, therefore I exist, or I am, I exist. So going back to the slide for a second, Descartes argues that if the evil demon is manipulating him, then he must be manipulating something. For as long as Descartes thinks that he exists, then something must be doing the thinking. So Descartes concludes initially, I am, I exist. So let's see what happens next. Descartes decided that I am, I exist doesn't give enough certainty, however. How do we know that our existence isn't based on the evil demon's plan? It is also defeated by the infinite regress argument, which skeptics use. So remember, that's where we keep asking, how do you know this? How do you know this? Descartes believed in mind-body dualism. His mind and body are separate, and this is a big debate which is had in what's called the philosophy of mind. For Descartes, even if his body is an illusion, his mind still exists. As he is thinking, he must exist. He wouldn't be able to question if the evil demon is deceiving him if he didn't exist. Descartes then poses his final argument. I think, therefore I am. And this is the cogito. Descartes has now found a belief of which there cannot be any doubt. The cogito, then, is our foundation for knowledge upon which we can build new knowledge. So Descartes has found a piece of information, a piece of knowledge, which he is absolutely certain of. And it is, I think, therefore I am. Because he thinks, there must be something that is doing the thinking. So therefore he must exist for as long as he is thinking. So now using rationalism as a foundation for knowledge, Descartes has found a certainty that cannot be doubted. He's done this through reason alone, remember. He's not done this through experience. He's done it through reason. So that is the cogito. Descartes proposes an analogy of wax, which basically tries to help us understand the cogito. So imagine a piece of wax. It looks, feels, and smells like wax. If you then hold it against a flame, it will melt and have different properties. So for example, it becomes liquid. Even though the properties have changed, we can still say that it's the same piece of wax. For Descartes, we cannot know through our senses that the melted wax is the same thing as the piece of wax. This knowledge must come from our innate ideas of how things are that tells us that it's wax. This is rationalism. Descartes argues then that we can know through reason alone, not experience, one thing which we can be absolutely certain of, and that one thing is the cogito. I think, therefore I am. So, what are the problems which arise from the cogito? So, many of the criticisms directed against the cogito are based around Descartes' introduction of the evil demon. So let's start with the evil demon and reason. The cogito is seen to be Descartes' first foundation of knowledge. However, we might wonder if we can fully trust the powers of reason and logic given the doubt raised by the evil demon. So could the demon, for example, be deceiving us about reason and logic? Is logic just something which is made up by the demon to deceive us? The existence of the evil demon might mean that we must doubt even the reliability of logic itself. Could the evil demon alter logic? Consider the structure of Descartes' argument. So below is the argument in standard form. If I am thinking, then I must exist. I am thinking, so therefore I must exist. While this argument is valid, the logic could be false. Maybe the evil demon has managed to make us think without a thinker. Maybe they have tricked us into believing things which appear to be self-evident. Maybe he's deceived us about how logic and reason work. The second criticism is the evil demon and language. In the cogito, Descartes has made assumptions. Descartes has assumed what language and words we use and their meanings. Descartes knows what thought, doubt, I, and exist all mean before he puts together the cogito. If the evil demon exists, can we be truly sure of what these concepts mean? If we can't, then maybe we can't be truly sure that I am, I exist is a concept which we can be absolutely sure of. So maybe now the demon is deceiving Descartes about what certain words mean. And if that's true, how can we be sure that this concept is something that we can be certain of? Last of all, we've got Descartes' assumptions about the self. Many philosophers have raised questions relating to Descartes' assumptions about the nature of the I referred to in the cogito. The main focus of these criticisms is to say that when Descartes claims I exist, he claims to know more than he is entitled to, given the nature of his doubts. So there could be an evil demon deceiving us about, or deceiving Descartes about whether or not he exists, about whether or not he has a self. So, three philosophers who've criticized this area of Descartes' cogito are David Hume, George Lichtenberg, and Bertrand Russell. And I'm just going to quickly tell you very briefly what they might say, or what they have said in response to Descartes' cogito. So David Hume to start with. Hume argues that there is no set self. It changes with experience. The idea of I, or the self then, is just a bundle of perceptions. There is no absolute self. So does that go against Descartes' idea that there is an absolute self? If we change over time, and Hume thinks we do through experience, then that seems to undermine Descartes' view on I, the self. Lichtenberg objected to Descartes' basic assumption about that if the I, about what the I in the cogito is. Lichtenberg argued that to say I think contains more than we can be certain of. He argued that the most we can say is it thinks, not I think, but it thinks. Bertrand Russell argued that Descartes' foundation of knowledge includes a large assumption about what the I actually is. Russell's criticism is that when we look at a table, we can't say for sure, I am seeing a brown table. The best we can say with certainty is a brown colour is being seen. For Russell, all that can be proved is the existence of momentary perceptions. So for Russell, we cannot prove that I, the self, exists. So that is your end of meditation 2. What you're going to do now is complete the past papers on Microsoft Teams, so the past paper questions, and submit them in the form of a Word document so that I can mark them. Take a picture of your notes that you've taken in this lesson as evidence that you've done the notes, and submit the Word document as evidence of you having done the past paper questions so I can then mark. National 5, that is you now at the end of the philosophy course. So from next week, you're going to be working through past paper after past paper after past paper. Higher, we still have one more meditation to get through, and this is meditation 3, where Descartes tries to prove the existence of God. So stay safe and well, and I'll see you in next week's lesson, or even at my weekly check-ins, which if you're in philosophy A, are on Monday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And if you're in philosophy D, on Tuesdays from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Do get in touch if you've got any questions about the second meditation. I am more than happy to help. So stay safe and well, and I'll see you in next week's lesson.